Deadbeat dad is anyone who doesn't make any effort to help raise their kids.
A sperm donor.
Dead reflects something that does not exist. I have a problem with referring to black men as men that do not exist.
Fatherhood is something you gotta be prepared for.
The woman can be the difference in making or breaking the relationship between the father and the child.
You also have a lot of women who've had great fathers in their lives. The story doesn't get told.
A lot of young men given the opportunity, yes, they're gonna be better fathers.
You become friends before you become lovers, you're gonna have these situations.
This is why it's so easy for them to get a woman pregnant and then leave her. He honestly haven't learned the respect he should for a black woman.
And now we paying for it, but don't know how to mend it because there is no communication.
That child don't want to hear about the conflict that you had with the other parent. They care about what did you contribute towards my development.
There is a whole lot more of men raising kids who are not necessarily theirs.
My father was always in my life. Regardless if he was in the house or not in the house, he was always there.
When my father became a man, that's when I became a man.
So when they say there are no black fathers around, I definitely reject that.
So you were able to take this self-concept of yours, persevere and become what you've become.
I had to learn how to parent. I had to go to classes for parenting. I had to forgive. So if both parents can put down their idiotic ways and put the kid first.
At the end of the day, it always comes down to what responsibility are you willing to take for what you have done. And a lot of people are afraid. I see a lot of women and a lot of men raising children, but they're abusive to children. Mm-hmm. They yell at them, they hit them. When you see some of these rappers and some of this negative energy, all they're doing is reflecting the abuse that they get. Yeah. You know, even when you look at television and movies, it's not just the music, it's everything collectively that's causing. I'm gonna keep it even so real to say that if you know you're not a good mother or a good father, and you don't want to take the time out to learn how to be a good mother or good father, let whoever likes being a good mother or good father be that.
She said she had to teach herself to be a good parent. Is it that people are not aware sometimes of the negative impact of what they are doing or not doing?
To a certain degree, yes. In the cases where you have younger fathers, the 18 to 21s, where there was no father in the picture, they need to be educated on how to be a good parent, how to look for that good mate, how to treat that sister. It's a cycle, you know, so if you get those who are not being taught, they can't effectively raise that child.
Now, how do we deal with the alternative lifestyles that's coming out now?
I know mine is not traditional.
Love is love. She said love before. Love is love.
Love breaks down all barriers. If the two people involved will love the child and bring it up in a loving environment and still chasing them when they need it, that child will grow up to be healthy and productive.
I mean, my mother brought in other children of parents that was on drugs and raised them. It becomes bigger than the dynamic of that's my child because I had that child.
No question. Let's talk to some of the people in the shop.
If you have a father that leaves a child, how you get them to feel that it's important to be into the child's life or take care of the child?
You can't force anybody to do what you want them to do. You have to educate yourself on what the law is to protect your child. If you can force them to take the financial responsibility so it's not totally on yourself.
You have to give them time to grow, to become more mature, to understand the damage that they're doing when they don't interact with the child. The way that I am now is not the way that I was 15 years ago. I started to see the depth of when I'm not around. I'm in Miami partying, and then all of a sudden I say, yo, I gotta make sure I catch this flight because I gotta be there for his birthday. And I know how important it is. So it's a process and growing, and you can't expect people to be where you're at as quickly as you.
How do you feel the definition of manhood has been changed in the face of popular culture? Beyond just hip-hop, because everybody likes to make it the scapegoat for all things wrong in the black community.
Well, let me ask this. Don't you think a lot of the craziness in pop culture has shifted? People growing up watching people smacking each other around Jerry Springer's show and I went with your sister and that ain't really your baby. I mean, doesn't this have some bearing on these young people on defining what family is way even beyond hip-hop?
But that's always been there, though. Right. Jerry Springer just let you see it. That's always been that little in the corner, in the hood. Times are changing.
So the answer is pop culture has changed, definitely. Question is, we don't know where the definition is now.
But manhood has a lot to do with taking responsibility for your actions, for what you create, and even taking responsibility for what you don't create.
I will touch that one.
My mother had full custody of my kid. I mean, I really want to be a part of my kid's life. What real rights do I have as a father?
You have a kid, the mother has full custody, and she doesn't want you in at all. What can you do?
As Sean said earlier, the laws have to change. The recourse for him, he has to file a police report. Then he has to wait till a court date to go to court.
But I think you're talking even deeper than that. He ain't got no rights to see him no time.
See, that's not true. It's up to you to educate yourself on your rights. And even though you don't have custody of a child, you still have visitation. The best thing to do is you and she work it out. Because when you involve attorneys, because you have a system that is based on adversarial relationships, so the best interest for you and your partner to work it out.
People have personal emotional attachments to what you did, what you didn't do. It really just destroys the child. You see, and you got to make that point clear. It's not about her anymore and the personal vendetta she got with you. It becomes a bigger picture, which is the raising of the child.
Do you think that boys need their fathers more than the women or the girls out there?
The child needs both parents, and I think that's what people get confused with, having to try to choose between one or the other, who's the better parent.
But I still think that men learn from men. Right. I know a situation where this lady was teaching her son how to use the bathroom.
Wait, sister says, can you take my son to the bathroom? You walk in there, and little man puts the seat down, rolls his pants down, and he boom. And you like, what's that about? But
hold it. Somebody out there got to go to the bathroom. How much of this goes back to our experiences in slavery when we couldn't have a family? I'm not saying this as an excuse, but isn't some of this inherited from the fact that the infrastructure of our families were destroyed and we're only 3 or 4 generations away from that?
Absolutely. Now that we know that that's the problem, the solution is that we got to step up, even if it's not your son. That kid might affect your son. I mean, back in the days, the whole block used to beat your ass when you was out of control.
They said it takes a village.
If you're going to pass down that tradition of what happened in slavery, then you should also be passing down the tradition of what we came from. We were kings and queens. We were in positions of authority.
I think that's important, but I also think if we're going to use slavery as a point of where the breakdown went, then you've got to also say behaving that way is conforming to what the slave masters wanted you to do. What I can't understand is all these conscious, hip brothers that don't want to be Uncle Toms, but then act in a family situation exactly like they wanted us to act. So I don't use it as an excuse, I use it as a challenge.
We cannot expect the government to handle our problem.
Right.
We have to take care of ourselves.
What Dougie said is important because there was a time the communities operated like that. My father left when I was young, but my pastor was the male image. Then later, James Brown or Jesse Jackson, people that mentored me. You learn from somebody, whether it's a gang member or a preacher, somebody's gonna have influence on your child.
9 times out of 10, it's gonna be a street cat.
Right.
Because
he's excessive.
And he sees the power. Men are attracted to power, whether it be violent, whether it be intellectual, whether it be spiritual, but the one that seems to be dominant, the one that sits up front, is when you see a cat in the street put pressure on the neighborhood, you want to be like that. Right. Who wants to be intellectually powerful, but every time you walk home, you're getting your ass beat?